Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 3. I thought it was so interesting, I thought I'd rewatch it for a second time and see what comes out of my face, knowing what we know now.
We have 4 weeks to get married. And for you to tell people that they're attractive people as an engaged woman, he's a cute guy, and in the real world, whatever happens, happens, right?
No.
So fuck me, right?
No.
You're gonna tell me you love me?
Wow. So she's crying. She's in that stage of crying where she's been crying a lot, puffy eyes, a lot of tears, and he's starting to escalate. And she's, so that first little bit, he was, I think, trying to be softer, trying to get her to validate in a passive way. He could have said something like, okay, am I normal, or is it okay that I felt triggered or that I felt concerned that it happened? Because that's probably what he's looking for, at least half of what he's looking for, is the fact that I was concerned about what happened and about what I saw. Is that okay for me to feel concerned and to feel hurt by that? I'm guessing she would say yes to that, and I think that would really help him. But she keeps defending herself naturally, but it's inadvertently triggering him, I think, into thinking that she doesn't believe that he is rational for being a little bit concerned, and it's continuing to trigger him. He's spiraling. But anyway, so he's trying to elicit that from her, and then she's like, no, because we understand why she would say that. She's like, no, you're reading it wrong. That's not what happened. And that's fine, but again, we use this as a jumping off point. Whenever you're in that situation, because it happens almost all the time in conflict with your partner or people in your life, is this notion of you're interpreting it wrong. No, that's not what happened. Okay, if you want to say that, that's great. That might help. But you want to start with the foundation, which is, I can see how you would feel that way. Just say it with me, people. I can see. Hey, say it with me. Now, some of you are watching with your partner. So say it, look at each other's eyes and say, I can see how you would feel that way. It makes sense that you feel that. I don't know if I would feel that in that moment, but I totally understand how you and others would feel that way given what happened, or interpret. I understand how you would interpret it that way. I get that. It's not how I was intending on you interpreting it, but I can see how you would interpret it that way. Just say it and mean it. If you say it and mean it, you could get that out of the way in 5 seconds, and then you can say, but that's not what I meant. What I meant was this. What I was trying to say was this. I think I was trying to say this. And the other thing is, when people are telling you this, when they're like, and you're thinking, no, that's not what I meant, you're misinterpreting it. Note for later that you will later reflect on how you are coming across that lends itself to misinterpretation. Maybe by people in general, but particularly from your partner, right? Because they might have particular triggers, right? Note that, because when we don't know how we're coming across to people. And I think most, if not all of us, have this delusion somehow that how we think we're coming across to people is actually how we're coming across to people. A stark example of this for me was, a big part of learning how to be a better therapist is to film yourself in therapy and watch it as a therapist. So I have done that periodically throughout my career for training purposes and others. But one of the things, like mid-career, I went through a bout of filming myself and watching it. So at that point in my career, 15 years ago, in my head, I thought I was coming across visually, in terms of my body language and facial expression, as someone who was very compassionate and very open and empathetic and listening really well. That's what I thought. That's how I thought I was coming across to people, because that's how it felt on the inside. Filming myself and watching it, I cringed the entire time, because I was really kind of like, I can't emulate it exactly, but I just was really, I didn't look like I was enjoying myself. I mean, maybe I came across that way overall with my clients, but I looked like I was not having a good time. I didn't look like I felt on the inside. It's natural. We don't automatically exude what's going on inside of us, right? So it's important to note that when your partner is telling you something and you're thinking, you're misinterpreting that, one, validate, two, say, maybe I should change the way I come across to people. Big revelation. Maybe my tone is coming across in a way that I'm not intending. Maybe I need to watch my tone. Maybe I need to be more expressive or more accurately expressive or something like that. So what she could do, which I totally understand why she would not, given the way that he's talking to her, is she could say, hey, I totally get how you feel, and it makes sense that you feel that way. If I were in your shoes, I would have felt similarly. You're okay. Your feelings are normal, and I get it. The reason why that is so helpful in situations like this is, one, that's usually the primary thing we're trying to get across. He's trying to communicate how he feels. He's not doing very well, right? But it's not hard to imagine what's really going on behind the hostility and intimidation. But not only is that why we're telling the story, it's like, have I communicated to you? Have you registered what I'm saying? It's like in the military when you're on the radio and you're just like, Roger, over. There's certain words that you will say that will acknowledge that you've been received. And so often in communication, particularly like this, we fail to communicate that we've received what the other person is saying. And it's one of the corny aspects of active, healthy communication that you'll often learn in a rudimentary way, in a simple way, is to simply just repeat back what you heard from the person. Okay, what I'm hearing from you is da-da-da-da. Maybe you paraphrase it or you just quote them, because when you do that, the other person can rest assured that you've received it. And so often we're being told things and we just sort of blast past it, or we're already thinking something else, or we're defending ourselves, and it can become very frustrating to people when they don't feel like they're being heard. They don't feel like they're being registered with the other person. Even if you don't agree, be like, okay, what I'm hearing from you is this. In your mind, you're like, that's ridiculous, but at the very least, you've received it. The other thing is that when you really register and you communicate to the person, like, I get it, I see you, it makes sense to me, is there's so many implications from that. So if he were to be reassured from her, and I'm not blaming her at all, that would be abhorrent because it's inaccurate, and two, it would be blaming the victim, so that's abhorrent. But if we use this as a jumping off point to talk about other kinds of communication, general communication in relationships, if you communicate to someone that you understand them, if she were to do that to him, then that might be 80% of the solution for him. Because if he knows that she thinks it's valid and that she cares, then by implication, she will think about that in the future and not do in the future. His concern is not of the past, it's of the future. He's worried it's going to happen again. He knows that nothing happened in that moment, but he's worried about what's going to happen in the future. And so if he can feel like, oh, she gets it, she understands, and you can even say in that moment, if you're in her shoes, just be like, I totally get where you're coming from. I would feel the same way if I were in your shoes, maybe, but I understand why you're upset because of what you saw. And yeah, I don't know. I was just sort of wrapped up in the moment. I totally understand how you feel. It makes sense to me. I get it. And I will think about that in the future. That might be all you need to say for him to say, okay, she gets it, and she will incorporate this knowledge into her decision-making into the future. That might be a big part of it. But anyway, let's rewind.
Engaged woman. He's a cute guy, and in the real world, whatever happens, right?
No.
So fuck me, right?
No.
You're gonna tell me you love me and shit like that, but fuck me, right?
I'm fighting for you.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's that belittling. It's that talking down to her. She's saying things that you would imagine would be reassuring to him, but he's not accepting that because it's hard to know exactly the full situation behind this behavior, but I'm guessing that he's just triggered and he is not seeing straight, and he is transferring and displacing his previous relationship onto her in this moment, and a lot of that anger is coming out. In fact, I'm guessing he's actually holding back a little bit because of the amount of triggering that he's going through. I imagine for him, he's like, well, yeah, I mean, if I was completely unhinged, whoa, that would have been awful. So, obviously, this is the tough part to watch.
So fuck me, right?
No.
You're gonna tell me you love me and shit like that, but fuck me, right?
I'm fighting for you.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I only have eyes for you, Matt.
Bro, what? You got your eyes on one person. You
I
should at
do.
least.
I only
You
have-
should have.
It is notable, I don't think I picked up on this the first time watching this through, that for her demeanor and her tone of voice is seemingly regressive in age, in development. She has a tone of voice and a demeanor of someone that is cowering and younger than him. It makes sense that she would go there, but it is notable, and who knows what's going on. But if this is indicative of their relationship, which would stand to reason that this is not an isolated sort of style of conflict that they've been through. Not only would we need to work on him, obviously, but the issues for her and the place that she tends to go to, at the very least, that she would be able to note to herself of just like, oh, I'm in that mode right now. That must mean I'm this amount of distress. A good amount of the ability to manage our lives, and particularly our relationships, is knowing in the moment how much distress we are in. It's not something that most people know about. In fact, I would say 95% of people almost have no ability in the moment to gauge that. You'll ask them like, so are you upset right now? They'll be like, no, I'm fine. What are you talking about? And they're obviously not fine. And they'll even check in on themselves. Even if they take a step and think, okay, am I fine? They'll be like, yeah, I'm fine. But they're not fine. If we hook them up to biofeedback, measurement systems and other kinds of systems, we can see that their heart rate is up, their cortisol is up, their adrenaline is up, all those kinds of things. But they'll claim that everything is fine, and obviously they're not fine. They might even be biologically in a total panic, fight or flight reactivity, and they might say, well, yeah, I'm maybe a 2 or a 3, but actually they're 10 in the moment. So a big part of so you can think about yourself in the moment when you're in a conflict is to check in with your distress, because one of the things that you can imply or take a guess is that when your stress goes up, your ability to see things straight goes down. Your ability to see things accurately goes down. Your ability to operate in a healthy manner goes down. And so a big part of actual help in couples is knowing that and doing what you can to bring yourself down. So because when you cross a certain threshold, say, depending on your own reactivity, but say you're above a 4 on the distress scale, 10 being the most distressed, it's almost impossible to be healthy in those moments. So it's imperative that you're aware of your distress and actually do what you can to bring yourself down to a 4 or lower so that you can re-engage. But so many people, the more distress they feel, the more likely they are to engage, because there's such a compulsion to get things off your chest, or to try to work things out, or to attack, or to point things out, or whatever. And so it's really important that you're aware of it and that you do what you can. Also, to notice that in your partner. If your partner looks distressed, or you imagine they're distressed, don't engage with them that moment. Don't expect them to be healthy in that moment, because it's almost impossible to be healthy and to be differentiated and to be caring. Because in order for us to engage in empathy and compassion, the necessary components of actually working on these conflicts, we have to be safe. We have to feel safe. And the more distress we have, the less safe we feel, and thus the less access we have to love and compassion and differentiation.
Bro, what? You got your eyes on one person. You should
do.
at least.
I only
You
have-
should have.
It's not like that.
Right, so you hear it, it's almost a whine. Again, I'm not putting her down, I'm not blaming her, but it is notable, the tone of voice that she's using. If you just heard that snippet and you had no idea what was happening, you would assume this was a teenager or younger person talking to their father or something. That's what we watch.
What are you talking about?
I only have eyes for you, Matt.
Bro, what? You got your eyes on one person. You
I
should
do.
at least.
I only
You
have-
should have.
It's not like that.
I want to be clear. One could argue that she is being abused in this moment, and that she's a victim, and that the voice is maybe even helpful to get him to calm down or something. So in no way am I saying she's immature or problematic in this way. In no way am I saying that. But it is just notable, I think, as a marker of distress for her, and maybe a particular style of her trying to cope with conflict and relational issues.
Stop. This is fucking ridiculous. Bro, I'm not gonna get fucking played, Colleen.
You're done?
I might be.
No, come on.
Yeah, I think that's the end of it. So that's pretty rough to watch.
I didn't know how to react to that kind of situation.
Hold on, do you hear yourself? You were engaged to me, and you did not know how to respond to somebody telling you that they are attracted to you. That's all I need to hear. I'm gonna tell how I feel, and we're on 2 different pages.
No.
Okay, so they're re-engaging, and again, it's that belittling, talking down to her. Do you listen to yourself? Listen to that. That's just so stupid. You're a stupid little person. You are dumb. I reject you. I'm smart. I know things you don't.
No, please tell me.
No. I'm out.
Oh,
It's very
please,
simple.
please.
It's very simple.
I don't want you to change.
And I suspect that a pretty big part of him, especially as evidenced by what happens after this, that by walking away, he's actually hoping that she will chase emotionally or otherwise, that he isn't actually saying, I'm done with the relationship. There might be a part of him that consciously is trying to avoid or get out of the situation, but I think there's a big part of him that is trying to communicate his displeasure and his hurt through rejection and saying, I'm done with you. We see this all the time in these shows and also in life.
Hey, for real, take this mic off me, man. Take this shit off me. I'm out, bro.
I don't want him to leave. I'm scared that he's trying to, like, tap out. And I don't want to lose him, so I don't care what I have to do. Like, who cares? That's people-pleasing. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like...
And he keeps drinking, which isn't going to help. If I were a birdie on his shoulder, I would say, take a breather, take a break, disengage, sleep it off, wake up in the morning, be sober, rethink about it, talk to your therapist, because continuing to have this conversation or make decisions in this state is not wise.
I'm scared that he's trying to, like, tap out. And I don't want to lose him, so I don't care what I have to do. Like, who cares? That's people-pleasing. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like...
Yeah, it's interesting that she would say, who cares if that's people-pleasing? And I wonder if that's a reference to how she sees herself or what she's been told before or in that moment or something. We could see how she has been through traumas that has led to her being a people pleaser and has led to her being told that or thinking about herself. And then she's having this internal dialogue where she's like, I'm going to pursue. And then there's another part of her that's like, well, remember, you're not supposed to be a people pleaser. But then she reacts against that.
Like, I don't want to lose him, so whatever I have to do, I have to do. Sorry, guys. Can you give me a second?
Yeah, it's pretty awful that she would feel like it's her responsibility to put herself on the back burner in this moment. You know, because she has every right to say, hey, screw you, pal. If you're jealous, it's fine. If you're hurt, it's fine. But to treat me like that, it's not okay. It's just not okay. If what I did hurt your feelings or caused you distress, totally fine. But you can't treat me that way. And we only saw snippets. We imagine it was much longer than that and even precedes when the camera showed up when they were sitting outside in the patio. So the onslaught of intimidation and belittling is just way worse than anything that she did, right? So the fact that she would feel like it's all her fault or it's up to her to make up for it is unfortunate and unfair.
Would I not be upset at that? If your wife came up to you and said that some guy told her that she was cute and then she in turn said that you're cute as well in the real world, if you were to buy me a drink, whatever happens, happens, would you be upset? Man to man, would you be upset?
Me personally?
You personally.
Yeah, so I think this was what he was trying to get from Colleen, was validation for his feelings, and wasn't getting it or wasn't getting it enough or something. And so he's still in that mode, which is normal. The way he went about it wasn't okay, but I think that that's still on his agenda of just like, can someone please validate me that my feelings of worry and hurt were okay? And he was, in his passive and his intimidating way, trying to get Colleen to validate him in that way. She didn't, because he was being aggressive. It's still in his mind, so then he talks to the producer.
And if I would have done the same thing to one of the girls, I'd be the fucking player that's playing her like a fucking fiddle. And I'm not gonna get played, bud, okay? It's not a game. This is my life. This is my life. If I'm gonna commit to somebody, I gotta know that she's with me 100%.
Are you still committed to Chloe?
Hey, I don't know.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.